A recent NASA-led study has sounded a stark warning about the future of major U.S. coastal cities, particularly in California, where rising sea levels could permanently alter the landscape within the next 25 years. According to the research, cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco could experience sea level increases of 6 to 14.5 inches by 2050, a projection that is nearly double what was previously estimated. These findings indicate that millions of residents may face displacement as entire neighborhoods vanish beneath the ocean, creating a crisis that extends far beyond property damage and economic loss. One of the most alarming aspects of the study is the combined effect of rising sea levels and land subsidence. In many parts of California, including the San Francisco Bay Area and the Palos Verdes Peninsula, the ground is sinking at an alarming rate due to natural geological processes and human activity, such as excessive groundwater extraction. In some cases, the land is sinking faster than the sea is rising, making flooding and permanent submersion inevitable. Cities built on reclaimed land, like San Rafael, Corte Madera, Foster City, and Bay Farm Island, are particularly vulnerable, as these areas are already below or just at sea level. If current trends continue, vast portions of these communities may be underwater well before mid-century. The financial burden of addressing these challenges is staggering. Since the 1960s, California has spent over $100 million combating land subsidence and related damage, and these costs are expected to skyrocket as the crisis worsens. Coastal infrastructure, including roads, bridges, ports, and public transportation systems, will require extensive modifications or complete reconstruction to withstand the changing environment. Insurance costs for homeowners in at-risk areas will likely become unaffordable or even unavailable, leaving many residents financially stranded with properties that cannot be sold or protected. The economic ripple effect will extend to businesses, tourism, and local governments, all of which will struggle to adapt to a rapidly transforming coastline. Despite the overwhelming evidence of impending disaster, climate research and response efforts have been severely undermined by budget cuts and political inaction. Agencies like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, have faced significant funding reductions, limiting their ability to monitor and predict climate-related changes. Without sufficient investment in climate science, policymakers are left with outdated or incomplete data, hindering their ability to make informed decisions. Meanwhile, emergency preparedness programs remain underfunded, leaving communities vulnerable to future storms, flooding, and other climate-driven disasters. The consequences of inaction are severe. If sea levels continue to rise at their current rate, repeated flooding events will become the norm in many parts of California, making some areas uninhabitable long before they are fully submerged. The environmental damage will be equally devastating. As fragile coastal ecosystems are eroded, freshwater sources become contaminated with saltwater, and wildlife habitats are destroyed. Critical wetlands, which serve as natural barriers against storm surges, will disappear, further increasing the risk of catastrophic flooding. This crisis is not a distant threat. It is already unfolding. Each year that passes without aggressive intervention brings us closer to a future where millions of people will be forced to relocate, cities will suffer irreversible damage, and economic losses will be measured in the trillions. The time for debate has long passed. Action is the only option. Governments at every level must invest in sustainable infrastructure, enforce stricter regulations on emissions, and prioritize coastal resilience projects before it is too late. The science is clear, the warnings are loud, and the clock is ticking. What happens next will determine whether California's coastal cities survive or become modern-day Atlantis.